SHEDEUR Sanders proved Kevin Stefanski needs to be fired. SHEDEUR Sanders proved Kevin Stefanski needs to be fired, and somehow the entire city of Cleveland felt it long before the final scoreboard confirmed it. It wasn't simply a game, a drive, or a moment that sparked this realization. It was the slow, painful unraveling of a franchise that had spent years searching for an identity, only to watch a 22-year-old rookie walk into its locker room and demonstrate, with unmistakable clarity, that he possessed more poise, vision, urgency, and competitive edge than the head coach tasked with leading him. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Cleveland believed it had a championship-caliber defense, a structured offensive system, and a coach capable of molding whatever quarterback the front office handed him. But with every snap SHEDEUR took, with every decision he made under fire, with every collapse around him that he somehow survived, a harsher truth emerged. SHEDEUR wasn't just outperforming expectations. He was exposing the person who had been holding the franchise back for years. Stefanski had always been described as calm, even-keeled, methodical, a man who believed in structure and rhythm and slow-building confidence. But the NFL does not reward slow builders anymore. Not in an era where the league is accelerating at a blistering pace and where schemes evolve half-seasons at a time. The moment the Browns drafted SHEDEUR Sanders, the moment the son of one of football's boldest figures stepped into Berea, the clock began ticking. The league rewards creativity, adaptability, courage, and the willingness to let a talented quarterback breathe. What it does not reward is rigid predictability. And through week after week of stalled drives, conservative play calling, and confused sideline expressions, it became impossible to ignore that SHEDEUR was playing chess while Stefanski was searching for the rulebook. But the shift, the moment fans moved from silent frustration to vocal certainty, happened not in a single dramatic mistake but in the accumulation of subtle failures. It was in the drives where Stefanski insisted on running the ball into loaded boxes, ignoring the fact that SHEDEUR had spent the last 3 possessions reading the field better than any Browns quarterback since prime Baker Mayfield. It was in the wasted timeouts, the mistimed substitutions, the moments where SHEDEUR would look toward the sideline for instruction and find none. It was in the small, almost imperceptible eye rolls from veteran receivers, frustrated that the rookie understood the coverage better than the man designing the offense. It was in the growing tension between the coach who wanted control and the quarterback who was born to take it. Cleveland fans know bad football better than most. They recognize dysfunction instantly, but what they are not used to, what they have rarely tasted, is seeing a franchise quarterback emerge in real time. And that is exactly what made this situation unbearable. SHEDEUR Sanders wasn't supposed to succeed this quickly. He wasn't supposed to command a huddle filled with grown men on the first day of training camp. He wasn't supposed to win the locker room before he won the starting job. He wasn't supposed to look this polished, this mature, this comfortable in chaos. The rookie should have been overwhelmed. But instead, SHEDEUR was the calmest person in the stadium every Sunday, while Stefanski looked like the one drowning. And football, at its core, is an emotional game. The players feel it before the public does. The locker room began to sense the disconnect early in the season. One player after another quietly admitted that SHEDEUR was already operating at a level the coaching staff had not prepared him for. Some described Stefanski's playbook as outdated. Others said it felt like they were running 2 offenses, the one Stefanski called and the one SHEDEUR turned it into at the line of scrimmage. Receivers told reporters off-record that the rookie was diagnosing coverages faster than they were. Linemen said SHEDEUR's pocket management was saving sacks that the scheme should have prevented. And defensive players marveled at how he kept fighting even when Stefanski's decisions boxed him into impossible situations. But the breaking point came on a cold afternoon that will live in Cleveland sports memory far longer than anyone expected. A game where SHEDEUR threw for over 300 yards despite constant pressure and a completely lifeless game plan. A game where he made throws no Browns quarterback had made in years. A game where he rolled out of collapsing pockets, extended plays, found receivers no scheme could have designed open, and carried an offense that seemed to be working against him. A game where the rookie quarterback clearly knew what adjustments were needed, and his coach stubbornly refused to make them. Every time SHEDEUR bailed the team out, Stefanski doubled down on caution. Every time SHEDEUR showed creativity, Stefanski responded with conservatism. Every time SHEDEUR pulled the Browns forward, Stefanski dragged them backward. By the fourth quarter, the fans saw it. The commentators saw it. The players saw it. And SHEDEUR himself knew. The offense was no longer failing because of youth or inexperience. It was failing because of leadership, and not his. The final drive wasn't supposed to be a referendum on Stefanski's future, but it became one anyway. SHEDEUR marched the Browns downfield with precision, improvisation, and ice-cold swagger. The defense knew he was throwing. The crowd knew he was throwing. Stefanski, for reasons no one can explain, called plays as if the Browns were protecting a lead instead of chasing one. SHEDEUR converted a 3rd and long with a laser into tight coverage, then escaped a near sack to scramble for another first down. With the stadium roaring and momentum finally on Cleveland's side, Stefanski called a draw play that fooled absolutely no one and resulted in a 3-yard loss. SHEDEUR stared toward the sideline with a look that only one interpretation could capture. Why are you making this harder than it needs to be? Every person in the building felt the shift. SHEDEUR's brilliance was no longer lifting the team out of trouble. It was highlighting who kept putting them there. When the final play of the game sputtered into another wasted opportunity, when the Browns left the field defeated yet again, there was no debate left. SHEDEUR had not just outgrown Stefanski's system, he had outgrown Stefanski himself. And the truth spread across the league faster than any storyline of the season. Analysts questioned Stefanski's decision-making. Former players wondered why a coach with such a talented rookie refused to evolve. Scouts privately admitted that SHEDEUR looked better than any quarterback prospect they had evaluated in years, but the offense around him looked designed for someone far less capable. Social media exploded with clips of SHEDEUR's best throws juxtaposed with Stefanski's most baffling play calls. By Monday morning, the narrative was set in stone. The Browns had their quarterback. What they did not have was the right coach. In an ordinary season, an underperforming coach might survive until the offseason. But this was not ordinary. This was a franchise with a rare, undeniable talent suddenly within its grasp. A quarterback who carried himself with the composure of a 10-year veteran and the competitive fire of someone born into pressure. You cannot waste a player like that. You cannot sabotage his development. You cannot force him into a box when he was built to break them. SHEDEUR Sanders didn't come to Cleveland to fit into a system. He came to elevate one. And when it became clear that the only thing holding him back was the very coach meant to empower him, the decision wrote itself. Stefanski had always preached patience, but patience is a luxury the Browns could no longer afford. The team had seen too many seasons wasted, too many quarterbacks ruined, too many opportunities squandered by coaches who confused stubbornness for stability. Cleveland didn't need stability, it needed evolution. It needed creativity. It needed boldness. It needed someone who looked at SHEDEUR Sanders and saw not a rookie to be coddled, but a weapon to unleash. And that is why, in living rooms and sports bars and stadium seats across Ohio, a unified conclusion formed. SHEDEUR Sanders had proven Kevin Stefanski needed to be fired. Not because Stefanski was terrible, but because SHEDEUR was too good. Not because Stefanski didn't care, but because he couldn't adapt. Not because Stefanski lacked intelligence, but because SHEDEUR demanded more than the coach could give. The future of the Browns is suddenly brighter than it has been in years, not because of leadership from the sideline, but because of brilliance under center. And as Cleveland looks ahead, toward the quarterback who could redefine its identity, toward the offense that should be built around him, toward the culture that must now match his competitive fire, one truth remains undeniable. When a rookie quarterback shows more command, more vision, and more urgency than his head coach, you don't question the quarterback. You replace the coach. That is the story of this season. That is the story of SHEDEUR Sanders. And that is why Kevin Stefanski's time in Cleveland must end. The franchise finally found its future. Cannot allow its past to keep calling the plays.